Aaron was not on my list.
Or Anna, I don't know.
Send me whoever needs to be sent.
I would send it to Laura in there. She did? Hey, Commissioner. Will you just thank you.
Al, do we have the others connected or not yet? Hello, Robin.
Hello, how you doing? Good, thanks.
I haven't seen it yet, but I'll get it after this.
Good afternoon. I see Commissioner Olson's name here in his video. Thank you, Commissioner Olson. We're just waiting on a few more commissioners, so we'll get started in just a moment. Okay, good afternoon. I see Commissioner Tovad and Commissioner Olson. I just wanted to verify that we didn't have Commissioner Kennedy or Commissioner O'Connor on the phone, and I just can't see them.
Commissioner O'Connor on the dais.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll take just a
Madam
few more
Chair,
minutes before we begin.
Kennedy. Madam Chair, Sandra Kennedy, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello?
Commissioner Kennedy, you
Nope,
are heard in
Commissioner
hearing
O'Connor
room
is on
2.
the dais. So, Commissioner Kennedy, are you on the phone?
I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, if staff could please check with Commissioner Kennedy's office, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Elijah Abina for staff. Commissioner Kennedy is on the phone. I don't believe you can hear her, but she's on the phone.
And Madam Chair, could you acknowledge hearing me in the hearing room? She's not hearing us.
Okay.
Oh, so Commissioner O'Connor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly. I don't think the chairwoman can hear either of us.
Yeah, obviously now.
Oh, there we are. I hear voices. Is that Commissioner
Okay,
Kennedy?
we are here. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I think we were having technical difficulties there. Thank you to Mike and Valerie for checking that out. Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. I apologize for the delay. Thank you to everyone again for joining us for this emergency meeting. Per scheduling request and the noticing of the meeting, we're going to adjourn at 4 p.m. today. In addition, I'll be adding this issue to the Commission's public meeting in March for further discussion. I'm grateful to be able to gather to discuss this very important issue of water quality and the health and safety of our residents and the military families living on and around Luke Air Force Base. As the Corporation Commission, we scheduled this emergency meeting as soon as possible for the benefit of all commissioners and members of the public. And the purpose today is to give all commissioners a chance to hear directly from the utilities in the area and give concerned members of the public an opportunity to hear the extent of the issue firsthand, as well as the utilities' responses to the situation. For anyone listening or watching today who isn't familiar with the Commission, our Corporation Commission is a regulatory body that sets rates for private utilities such as electric and water companies, as well as gas and sewer. We're a 5-member body established in the state constitution, and each of us is elected statewide by the people of Arizona to supervise and regulate the state's public service corporations to ensure they're providing safe and reliable drinking water supplies to their customers. Today, we'll be hearing from 5 utilities within the vicinity of Luke Air Force Base and that may be drawing their water from the same source. These include Valley Utility Company, Epcor Water Company, Liberty Utilities Company, Adaman Water Company, and Tierra Buena Water Company. We'll also be hearing from the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, who was invited to attend and has been helpful along the process. ADQ is the authority on water quality and what level of contaminants are possible or permissible, under state and federal law, as well as what the potential health risks and implications could be for various amounts of exposure. We should be deferring to them on what is considered safe for purposes of Commission jurisdiction and action. We've also invited Luke Air Force Base to attend, who I believe is on the line. We'll be hearing from Shimi Matthew on behalf of the base before we hear from ADQ. Due to the nature of the meeting and the expedited schedule, we will not be taking public comments today, but any questions or comments from members of the public can be routed to our Utilities Division and Consumer Services section on the Commission website at azcc.gov. And any media requests or requests for additional information from members of the media can be routed to our Public Information Officer and Media Liaison, Nick Debus, in the Executive Director's Office. Today, we'll be asking numerous questions and taking initial steps to assure the public health. First, we must build the record and lay an official foundation for these chemicals at the Commission, including what they are, what levels are safe, and what the health risks might be. Second, we must establish the scope of the Commission's jurisdiction so we know how, as regulators, we can collaborate most effectively with other state agencies and take action, whether that's ensuring the utilities' timely response, ensuring that utilities are adequately communicating with their customers and members of the public, or ensuring that utilities are following the necessary regulatory guidelines and treating their drinking water supplies to the levels that have been established by law. Of course, there'll be questions about who should pay and how much that will cost. There will also be questions about when the utilities found out about the chemicals, how long they've known, who they notified, when did they make those notifications, and whether everyone who needed to be kept informed of the situation was kept in the loop. If not, then we'll need to know why not. But first and foremost is public health and safety. Every Arizonan needs to know that they can trust their water service provider and that the water coming out of the tap is safe and clean to drink. So with that, I thank again everyone for attending with short notice, and I want to open it up for commissioner comments before we move on to Luke Air Force Base and ADQ and our regulated utilities. Commissioner Kennedy, did you have any opening comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to thank everyone for participating, and I'm actually looking forward to hearing all the information that will be gathered here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, similarly, I just want to thank everybody for participating here today. This certainly is a critical issue whenever we're investigating the safety and the reliability of our public services. That's something that is absolutely critical. I've spent a lot of time reading through the items that have been filed to the docket. A lot of information has been shared, and I appreciate that. Look forward to hearing from the utilities here today. I think it would be very valuable to hear from the Air Force as well. I understand I don't expect that they'll be participating here today. But certainly they've established a record as well with regard to their understanding of this issue and the fact that they are now providing bottled water to the residents in the area and have identified their intention to fund the treatment of these chemicals that are in the water supply as a result of the fire retardant they used back in the 1970s through the early 2000s. So I likewise look forward to hearing from the folks that are presenting here today, and look forward to addressing any questions that might arise as a result of their presentations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tovad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just echo the comments that have been stated by fellow commissioners and by yourself in regards to gathering as much information as possible and making sure that our customers that are out in the West Valley are able to rely on safe and reliable water, and also making sure the communication aspect is fine-tuned. I also want to say thank you to everyone that is on the call today, from the stakeholders to the different private water companies that have taken the time to meet with me and also give me a general tour as well too from Liberty. It's been just quite a process in the last week of meeting with everyone, but everyone has been super helpful in regards to the information that they're sharing. So looking forward to kicking off this meeting here, and then follow-up meetings as well too, as you know, safety is my number one concern in regards to the water that is being delivered currently, and hopefully establishing a solution for the customers right now with Valley customers. So I have been fielding calls within my office from Valley customers as well too, and encouraging them to relay their concerns, comments, or questions into the docket as well too. So looking forward to working with the customers as well too. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Connor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to compliment my fellow Commissioner Tovar for moving as expeditiously as she did when this situation came to light, and generating her letter to the public and to the water companies. High praise from me, Commissioner Tovar. Thank you again to the Air Force for the bottled water for the drinking public in that vicinity of Luke Air Force Base. And thank you for all those companies participating, as well as Air Force / Department of Defense in today's meetings. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioners. And we'll go ahead then and move on to our presentations. And in trying to facilitate this within the 2-hour time frame, we'll go around through the Commissioners to ask questions of our speakers, and I will try to contain this within a certain amount of time, and we may have to do follow-up questions for some of our utilities, but we'll see how this goes. And would like to begin, of course, with the base first. I believe we have Shimi Matthew on the line, and I wanted to say we're so thankful that you joined us today to provide an update. As the public may not be aware, we do not have jurisdiction over the base. They agreed to join us voluntarily. And this is a potentially serious matter, so we really appreciate you being here. Shimi, do you have a statement or initial comments you'd like to present before we open the floor to Commissioner questions? And I believe you can unmute.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Well, I will just open it by saying thank you for inviting Air Force to share the proactive and the voluntary action we have taken to make sure our military families and all our community members have safe drinking water. We have been working with the community, the city leadership, and the regulators for the past few years as we have made some progress in this area. So we'll be happy to answer any questions that the commissioners or companies have. I'm sorry I don't have a formal briefing prepared, but we'll be here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll start then with any initial questions from our commissioners. Commissioner Kennedy?
Madam Chair, I don't have any questions. I'd really like to hear from the companies since the base does not have any a formal presentation. Are there any formal presentations that will be made by any of the companies affected by this issue? That's who I'd like to hear from.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know we do have ADQ next on the agenda, and then the 5 regulated utilities with a follow-up from staff at the end is the process. So we should be hearing from each of them.
Okay. Then, no, I don't have any questions right now. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Olson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if the representative from the Air Force could just describe the efforts that the Air Force is taking. I know most of us have read about these efforts, but I think it would be helpful for any members of the public that might be tuning in to watch these proceedings. It's my understanding, and if you could confirm, that the Air Force is providing bottled water to the customers of the affected utility, and that the Air Force has also agreed to pay for the treatment of these chemicals. And so that's my understanding. I was wondering if you could confirm that. And then secondly, I just had a question on whether the Air Force is actually handling the implementation of the treatment or just financing it. And if you are handling the implementation, I wondered if you could give us some details on that implementation. It's my understanding that the Air Force expects it might be about 6 weeks to get the equipment that's needed, and maybe another 6 weeks to have it implemented and up and running and to fully treat for these chemicals. So those are just some somewhat broad topics. I wonder if the representative from the Air Force might be able to share what information she has on those topics.
Yes, sir. I'll be happy to share. I could start with a brief summary of what we have done in the past. Like I said, we have started working around Luke Air Force Base, studying the impacts a few years ago, and we've been working with the regulatory agencies. We had a contract team come in and study all the possible locations where we might had PFAS spills or exposure to the area. And after further studying, in fast forwarding back to 2019, we sampled, we were at a point where we were able to show that there might be a pathway for the contamination to migrate from within base to off-base property. So at that point, Air Force aggressively developed a contract, and we sampled all the private wells because our focus is on drinking water following EPA's lifetime health advisory. So we sampled all the private wells, or notified all the private well owners within 1 mile, conducted samples, and one homeowner was, their water was tested about EPA's lifetime health advisory. Air Force immediately put them on alternate drinking water within 48 hours. So the next step, after our technical team study the hydrology and give us the guidance, our team implemented sampling of private wells within 1 to 4 miles. That was done fall of 2020. And from all the homes that we sampled the well water, there was one that was below 70, but it was about the 35 ppt. So we resampled. Our policies, if anything is between 35 ppm and the 70 ppt, and 70 ppt, we will monitor them and take quarterly sampling. So when we resampled them end of December, that one homeowner was about 70. So he's also on alternate bottled water since beginning of January. So in the meantime, we've been working with the utility companies within 1 mile down gradient radius of Luke Air Force Base in the direction of groundwater flow for the past couple of years, keeping the regulators in the progress almost on a daily and quarterly basis. And we were able to conduct sampling of the utility wells within 1 mile of Luke Air Force Base in the January week of the 25th. We received the preliminary numbers, and some of the valley wells were about the EPA lifetime health advisory. We were able to send out letters to all valley customers. It was a signed letter from Luke Air Force Base commander, along with a couple of attachments assisting the customers to where to get the bottled water, the COVID safety configuration, and EPA's fact sheet. We have bottled water distribution location up and running within a couple of days after that, and we've been providing bottled water to Valley customers since 23rd of February. And as of yesterday, we served about 1,489 customers. We gave away about a little bit more than 21,000 of 1 gallon, about 64 of the 5 gallon, 37 of the 24 packs, and about 13 coolers. We also reached out to all the schools in the Valley customers and already gave them adequate coolers and water supply, and they're already on automatic water delivery contract. We have also reached out to the high demand users such as the restaurants, and we are, in addition to the letters that we sent to them, and we are working with them on what they need to remediate the water. So that's what we have so far on the water supply, and I believe the second portion of that question was, what is Air Force doing to implement remedial system? So as we are immediately taking care of the drinking water situation, we are also looking at installing a remediation system at the location where we had Valley Wells test about the EPA lifetime health advisory. The location is referred to as Bethany Hills West. There is a cluster of 3 wells and 2 distribution points. We are working with the Valley, the contractors, and Corps of Engineers in installing a remedial system in that location. The contract is being awarded. We have a unit that we used or Air Force used at a different location, and that system will be transported to that location. But before we could start any of the work, we need an access agreement between Air Force and Valley Utilities. We are working with Valley on that. We have drafted it up, and once it's ready for Valley's review, it will be sent over to that. Once both parties sign on that and the contract is awarded, they will be installing an ion exchange system. That's what is best for the remedial process. We still have to we already started working with the Valley to collect some more water samples so we could study and design the treatment system accordingly. So right now, Air Force will be paying for that unit and the installation, the entire contract. Once it's up and running, it might be Air Force that continuing the operation, or we might be starting discussion with the Valley to see what's best to manage that unit. I hope I answered all your questions. If I haven't, please do let me know.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that additional detail. That is very informative and very helpful. And I apologize if I missed it, but did you describe what you have as the anticipated timeline for implementing that treatment plan?
Yes, I could do that. So there are a couple of steps that we need to cover before we physically start the installation. One is that access agreement. 2, the contract should be awarded, which we are expecting as of this morning. I was told we are expecting the award of the contract any day. So once we have that, it will take once those 2 hurdles are over, it will take the contractor about 6 to 8 weeks to bring the system down here and install it, but then they will have to test the system to make sure it's working. So we are expecting anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks or 8 to 10 weeks.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the representative of the Air Force for being here today and for sharing that additional information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tovad, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Matthews, thank you so much for being on today, along with the Luke's attorneys as well, too. And thank you for taking my phone call earlier in the week as well, too, in regards to this. Can you share with the commissioners and the public, just in regards to the overall remedy as far as a permanent solution? I know that you described a process that takes quite a few years in order to implement, and right now you're in the stages of implementation, but can you describe a little bit more on the follow-up of what happens after the test results from the lab in San Antonio, and what would be considered like a phase 2 in regards to testing that Luke would then do, and or soil samplings, and then just kind of describe the time frame of that actual full report or full process of this project being completed.
Yes, ma'am. So as you know, this is not just a Luke Air Force Base issue. It's an Air Force wide. It's a nationwide issue, and the approach we are following is a whole government approach. So it's very important that we partner with our regulators, our local regulators, our EPA partners, and other military agencies and other industries while we are working towards a permanent solution. So what I have informed you all is the immediate implementation steps that we have taken. So as a follow-up for more of a permanent and an extensive study, Air Force already awarded a contract called Remedial Investigation, which was awarded for Luke Air Force Base in the fall of 2020. That is a 4-year contract where we will work with the local agencies, and outside the Air Force Base, we will collect more water samples and possibly more soil samples. It's more like an extensive study to characterize the contamination, or how the size of the plume, or how long it is, things like that. The approach Air Force has involved multiple teams. My team, we implement the projects, but we have a PFOA/PFAS technical team back in San Antonio. They follow the circular regulation to make sure all the bases are following the same process. Everybody's coordinating and following the same process. We also have a technical team back in San Antonio that's a group of science experts. So once they collect the information from the remedial investigation contract, which, like I said, it's an extensive contract to drill sampling location, collect water. We'll collect the water and the other information for about 2 to 3 years. And then the technical team and the PFOA/PFAS team will study and model the groundwater flow and further characterize the plume. And based on that information and the information from other agencies, they will decide what the best approach for more of a permanent solution. And that's what will be implemented down the road. The RI contract is for 4 years, or 3 to 4 years, so we'll get a formal report at the end of that. So the permanent solution will come after that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Matthews, what is the estimated year on that?
So
on the final
the remedial contract was awarded in 2020, and that's a 4-year contract. So it will end in 2024.
And just,
But
I know you
the follow-on contract.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So that is just the first phase of the remedial contract. After the first phase or towards the end of the first phase, depending on what we find out, there will be a second phase if needed for the RI contract. And we don't have the timeline, exact timeline for the second phase yet. We are waiting for some of the results from the sampling that we just conducted and some of the initial sampling results from the RI contract. But that will be a multi-phase contract.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews, on that answer itself. In regards to receiving the data that is currently awaiting, will you at that point, along with the stakeholders and your process, will you be able to share that information with ADEQ? I know when I've spoken with the different stakeholders, I would say a biggest limitation on information has been the sharing of information in regards to what is transpiring. What I understand is that the process is you do have quarterly updates with all the entities with EPA Region 9, our entities here in the state of Arizona, such as ADQ. But in regards to sharing any of that information, that is, I'm asking if that is something that is permissible. And also is at that point, could they be able to have feedback for you in regards to this and working in collaboration at this point when you're discovering that information and the results of potential testing? Because what I'm hearing is that, you know, from the entities is that communication and that sharing of information is a bit difficult at the moment.
Yes, ma'am, I could answer that question. So far, the 2 private wells we tested, we couldn't share the exact location of the wells for Privacy Act information. The results that we just received for the utility wells, they are preliminary numbers only. They are not finalized or validated results. So once we get the finalized validated results and it's verified by our scientists in San Antonio, that's when we will have the actual numbers. Now, who we could share that with will need to be discussed with our legal team, because in the past we were able to, share it with the regulator, but not with public because of the Privacy Act. These numbers are from Valley and Liberty, so we will consult with them and we'll go forward at that point.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
After we receive the final report, there will be data that we could share with the regulatory agencies, such as the map showing where we collected the samples and where the sampling locations were. Things like that we'll be able to share. But the actual numbers, I would say before we share with anybody, I will check it with our legal team and Valley and Liberty, because it was their water that we tested.
Thank you. Just in regards to, does the Air Force anticipate funding for the PFOA and PFOS remediation from loop to other entities with contaminated wells in the area? I know that the ACC has approved recovery and rates for remediation in regards to Liberty, and I want to make sure that those customers are made whole as well too.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question, Commissioner? Sorry.
No,
was
absolutely.
Was that a question for me or, oh, sorry.
Yes, it was a question. So in regards, and I could just simplify it as well too. So as you know, Liberty took action very early on once they were notified by the EPA of the PFOA and PFOS, and brought that remediation very quickly, because how it's been described to me is that their safety was the #1 priority for their customers in receiving safe and reliable water. At that point, they did, the ACC approved for recovery and rates for the remediation that Liberty did at that point. I'm asking if Luke anticipates funding for this, particularly like for others, utilities that had the contaminated wells in the area since 2016, made recovery on their own. Does the Air Force anticipate funding those? And my question, the reason why I'm asking is that I want to make sure that those customers are made whole as well.
I believe I could answer that. If not, I will have to refer that to our legal expert, L'Oreal, who is online. From what I understood, Liberty approached us in the past to see if Air Force could refund for the voluntarily system they installed. And I believe the guidance was if any other utility or anyone voluntarily installed remedial system, Air Force do not refund, but they could approach the legal department to see if there is different avenue for refund. Not refunds, but it got to be a different process. L'Oreal, am I correct?
This is L'Oreal Gooding. I'm an attorney with the Environmental Law and Litigation Division of the Air Force. There's a Federal Claims Act and a process on what an entity or an individual would have to file to try and seek payment. And I'm not a fiscal law attorney, but that would be the process that anyone that would need or would seek any kind of payment would go through.
Thank you. So it's my, not a lawyer, so just want to put it in everyday talk in regards to this, so that if a company were to be proactive and come to a solution because they felt a remedy is a #1 priority, it kind of sounds like they're actually getting penalized for doing that and taking those proactive steps and not waiting for Luke to come in and offer that remediation for them. I just find that very unjust for a company to take those actions and then bring a remedy as soon as possible so that their customers are not drinking from bottled water or cooking from bottled water as well too. And then it's the the rules that be for the Air Force in regards to your guidelines that doesn't incentivize a solution to come quickly. I think we all know that the problem with the PFOA and PFOS has been due to what transpired at the base from 1970 to 2016 is my understanding. I would hope that in the future that could change so that if a company is proactive and truly wants to bring a solution as quick as possible, that they're encouraged to and they're actually made whole, because as you know, the customers at that point would be paying for that solution as well too, in their rates as well. So do you anticipate any fixes to this type of procedure right now?
Yes. Well, Commissioner, let me just say I understand your frustration and the views that you're expressing now. The only thing that I could say is this isn't an Air Force decision or an Air Force policy. Unfortunately, the Air Force can only operate within the statutory authority that we have to operate. So this is part of, federal law, and we can only do our response actions in accordance to our legal authority. So this is all part of how CERCLA is structured, as well as the Federal Claims Act. But I understand your frustration and your viewpoint on costs that could be affecting customers within that base.
Thank you. Just in regards to, and maybe Ms. Matthews can answer this, because I'm hearing a couple of different dates in regards to when this PFOA and PFOS were discovered on the base and the testing that you started there at the base at Luke Air Force Base. And then I hear from what was the EPA's announcement in 2016. My understanding is that in 2016, the EPA notified various stakeholders that were around the base, notifying them of the well testing that exceeded the 70 parts per trillion. At that point, had a gathering in regards to the stakeholders, the water companies that were involved. Some were municipalities, others were private water companies that are on this call today. From that call that transpired from the EPA, did the base at any point have contact or receive any information from the EPA at 2016 in regards to these testing that was discovered?
This is Shimi. I do not recall a meeting from EPA or a notification from EPA from 2016 to Luke Air Force Base or to our team.
Thank you. I'll follow up with that in regards to, was there any communication from any of the entities or the municipalities, the private water companies from 2016 that were notified at the EPA meeting of this situation? Did any one of those stakeholders communicate with the base in regards to the findings?
I don't know if anybody at the base, at Luke Air Force Base, was notified, but I know our team being working with the base and the entities in the area for a few years, and I believe the first time we learned about EPA doing the testing in 2016 was when we were looking at the possibility of sampling the utility wells, and we contacted both Valley and Liberty, and they were willing to share the test results from 2016 when EPA conducted the testing of the Valley wells. That's what I recall. That's when we received. I don't remember any notification, direct notification from EPA.
Okay. And during this process that you have at Luke Air Force Base right now with the study that you're doing, is there, I know you had mentioned there was communication with the EPA Region 9, but has the EPA actually gave you all the information that transpired in 2016?
No, ma'am. They have not provided us with any information. But we have the test results of the 2016 results from Valley. Okay, so we've been working with both Valley and Liberty, and they've both been sharing the information with us.
Okay, so that if the EPA didn't share the information with Luke, did Luke, after receiving the communication from the two private water companies, did you at any point after that, did Luke request the information of the totality from the EPA?
No, we haven't, because we knew when the test was conducted and we had the results from the utility companies.
Okay, but only from those two companies themselves, because it was my understanding they did across the state of Arizona.
I believe EPA did, but I cannot confirm that. It's probably best to confirm with somebody at EPA. But our focus was within that 1 mile radius, the immediate vicinity around Luke, and that was our initial focus area. And in that 1 mile, it was Valley and Liberty. So we focused our communication with both Valley and Liberty for this stage of the study.
Thank you. I'll move on to more of the communication aspect from Luke and from Valley in this recent incident that has transpired. In regards to the MOU that was signed between you and Valley Waters, when was that initial MOU signed?
I believe the Valley MOU was signed in February of 2020, and Liberty was signed in March of 2020.
Okay. In regards to the communication that transpired from the base, you had mentioned that you worked with Valley to get all the customer information in regards to the mailer that went out. Approximately how many mail, because I think they're packets. It's a white envelope, maybe 11 by 14 in size, with all the documents in there. How many of those did you send, and when was the date that you sent them out through the mail? Because I know the date on the actual letter. I'm not sure when they were actually officially mailed out.
Well, we collected both the mailing labels, mailing address, and service addresses from Valley. We combined the two and removed the duplicates and sent out a total of 2008 letters. It was the letter signed by the commander along with the 3 attachments. They were 8.5 by 11. They were sent out on, I could tell you the date, but I didn't know I needed all this info, so give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
I believe the letters were sent out 19th, Friday of February.
And was that by first
And we
class
started
mail?
providing regular mail.
Okay.
We sent out the letters on 19th, and we started providing bottled water on the 23rd, Tuesday, February.
Thank you. You had mentioned as well, too, just in your question, I think from another commissioner, from Commissioner Olson, in regards to over 1,000 customers that have been served currently by the water handout.
Yes, it's 1,489 customers as of yesterday.
And in regards to the totality, what I'm hearing is the total amount of customers is somewhere between like just over 4,000. Is that correct?
Valley has 1,650 connections, which per Valley, it's about 2.5 person per connection, 2 adults and a child. So that will be around 4,000.
So when you're keeping track of the water, is it you're keeping track per household? So I could say it was 1,489 households or people?
No, it's 1,489 people that stopped at the distribution center.
Okay.
So they most likely will be getting for more than one person for their family.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. Thank you on that as well, too. In regards to any future communication with the actual customers from Valley, is any of that agreed upon yet with Valley Waters?
Can you clarify future contact?
So I know that you did the letter, you sent it out on the 19th, the 2008 letters to the customers. You had a briefing blitz that hit a lot of the news stations as well too. Is there any other type of plan as far as communication plan to follow up with these customers? I know, the 1,489 that you mentioned, know about the water, know about the distribution and home delivery as well too. But just wondering if, because I've received calls from my office where they didn't receive the letter, or maybe they didn't open it because it wasn't actually in the return address, it didn't have that this was a water issue or it was an emergency or an alert. Please do not, use your water. It just seemed like it was a white envelope, and it didn't have Valley Utilities return address on it. So a lot of people may have not just opened it. And I know that there's a lot of people discovering that they don't watch the news. So just wondering in regards to any future follow-up communication with customers in Valley, has that been agreed upon, or do you have any right now in the queue that could potentially go out to these customers?
Yes, we do. The initial letter had a number for them to call to make the arrangement for water pickup. It also had a number, if they have any questions, they could call our office that will answer questions. It also had EPA sites and other contact info that would answer any of their questions. So that was our initial attempt. So the letter had numbers that people could call and will answer, which we have been doing since we sent out the letters. We have been answering people's call and replying to their email. So after the initial couple of weeks, our plan is to probably look at the Valley customers and see how many have reached out to get the water, and we'll get with the Valley utility and see if we could sort out the customers that have not responded, and we'll start talking to Valley or coordinate sending another set of letters, maybe make it certified letters next time around. Yes, we are discussing and talking what other steps that we could take to reach out to the rest of the customers.
Okay. But as of right now, no concrete date of when that official certified letter would be going out?
No, because we will have to sort through the 15,000 customers that came to our location and, sort through the Ordinary Valley list, but hoping to do that maybe next week.
Okay. My next question was just in regards to the calls themselves. You are tracking the address, the name of the customer?
All the Valley customers that come to our water distribution, when they initially come to pick up the water bottle, we ask for their ID to verify their address to make sure they're Valley customers as explained in that letter. And we collect their information and they are put on automatic water delivery as soon as possible. So the customers that came in the week of the 23rd, most of them are already in the automatic water delivery system with the local water company.
Okay. Any of those that have been tracking, have any of them identified of having any type of disability or maybe senior citizens that have identified themselves of, maybe some of the water that is being delivered, it being too heavy for them to actually transport into their home?
Yes, ma'am. We have received a call of people who cannot come to the water station, but would like us to deliver water for them. We are taking care of all those requests also. We are delivering water to their home as needed per their request.
And if a request is asked, in regards to the delivery of water, is it left on their doorstep, or do the delivery actually deliver inside their house, say, for example, in their kitchen?
It's up to the homeowners. We do what they request us to do, whatever is more convenient for them.
Okay, that's great to know. Thank you. In regards to any type of retail restaurant that is located in this service area, how many, to your knowledge, have reached out to Luke?
We had 3 reached out to us, but we have reached out to all of them. The 3 that reached out to us, one was a McDonald's. We are already working with them and have provided alternate water for them. The other 2, we are waiting for them to get back with us on the details. So those three, and one more, sorry, 4 restaurants. The 4th one, we already met with them and are providing coolers and 5-gallon water. The rest of them have not responded to us, but we have reached out to all the restaurants. And we are either waiting for them to get back with us on how they would like to proceed. Some have politely declined and said they have filtration system in place. So yes, we have reached out to all the restaurants in the area.
Thank you. I appreciate Ms. Matthews in regards to your proactiveness of reaching out to customers and especially the restaurants as well too. I know it is quite a task to try and encompass that, but I would encourage, you know, as soon as possible, if you can have that certified letter to the customers that have yet to respond, because I feel that that's an issue where we would like to see a resolution come to, so that we, that they're notified, number one, but number two, that they're taking the precautions necessary during this advisory as well too. I do appreciate everything that you're doing and have been very transparent in the process of describing everything to us here today as well too. I hope that you could also join us in the future in future meetings that we have later on this month. But thank you so much for answering my questions.
You're very welcome. Like I said, this is a whole industry approach. We all need to work together, and we are, Air Force is more than happy to be transparent and share what we are doing to be proactive in this field. Happy to help and answer questions. Let me know.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Connor, do you have any questions?
I do, just a few. Miss Matthew, is it Matthew or Matthews?
It's Miss Matthew.
No S.
No, sir.
Thank you. And are you an officer in the Air Force or a civilian?
I'm a civilian.
Thank you. Now I'll proceed with my question. I just wanted to address you appropriately. My questions are more or less two. When you described the location earlier, I'm not familiar enough with the local geography. Is the location of this remediation facility that's been under discussion on the base or off the base?
It's off base, sir. It's about, and if anybody is there from Valley, they could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about half a mile down the road from Luke. The location is called Bethany Hills West location. That's what Valley calls that area. They have a cluster of wells there. There's about 3 wells in that area.
So it would be on the property currently owned by Valley Water, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you on that. And thank you and my compliments on the Air Force operating with the highest level of integrity to take responsibility for the problem that resulted from your activities dating back to 1970. That's quite refreshing for me to hear, where government of any kind steps up and the buck stops here. My compliments to the command over there for doing that, and please pass that along. Second and last question has to do with an estimate of the costs. Has there been any ballpark of how significant the cost for this system that I guess is being constructed out of state and would be shipped here within 6 to 8 weeks and then installed out to 12 weeks from now? What kind of a ballpark number are we looking at in terms of cost and installation?
Sir, to be honest with you, I do not have a cost for that system or for that contract yet. Our contracts are managed by a team in San Antonio, and that contract has not awarded yet. It is expected to be awarded anytime, but I do not have a specific number for that.
And
I do know Air Force. Oh,
would it be the intent of the Air Force to pick up 100% of the cost of the system and the installation thereof?
yes, sir.
All right. And I think you were going
I
to
could tell you Air Force.
I think you were going to volunteer one more piece of information I'd be delighted to take.
Yes, sir. I was going to say Air Force in its entirety has spent about $676 million Air Force wide for this PFAS effort.
Matthew.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Appreciate your
Madam Chair.
support.
Thank you. And Ms. Matthew, I just had a couple quick questions. And thank you to the commissioners for all these great questions. But will the initial Bethany Hills West remedial system likely halt the movement of the plume?
Our immediate focus is to remediate the drinking water from the cluster of wells, since we know that's about 70. And once we get the test results, and we'll have to look at other hydrology and geology in the area to further characterize the plume at that point. So that will be done by our technical team in San Antonio. But the remedial system in Bethany Hills area should remediate the water that's coming out of the wells in that location.
Thank you. So is the Air Force able to take any action now to halt the movement of the plume?
Well, I'm not a technical expert, so I apologize if I don't know those technical terms, but I believe by remediating the production of the water from those 3 wells, we are kind of impacting the size of that plume because we are treating what's coming out of those 3 wells.
And if the chemicals are detected in other wells or utilities beyond the 1 mile radius, will the Air Force be taking similar remedial measures with those utilities as well?
Like I said, once we get the actual numbers from this test, our technical team will look and advise me of further action.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Matthew. Appreciate, go ahead.
You're welcome. No, I was going to say thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. And if you could please stay on the line, we sure would appreciate it. We're going to hear from ADQ and our utilities, but there may be additional questions if you can.
Will do.
So thank you. We're going to move on now. Thank you to the Director of ADQ, Misael Cabrera, is joining us today. And Director Cabrera, wondered if you could make some opening statements perhaps and answer questions.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the Commission. Ensuring that all Arizonans are receiving safe drinking water from public water systems is a priority for our state. And given the arid nature of our climate, all groundwater is considered a precious drinking water source in Arizona. This is different than many other states in the nation. So in fact, ensuring that Arizonans are receiving clean drinking water necessarily includes preventing that contaminants, and in this case PFAS, spread into additional areas. Groundwater moves over time, of course, and our preliminary analysis suggests that hundreds of private wells serving homes, businesses, and irrigation, as well as 10 additional public water systems, are located within a 4-mile radius down gradient of Luke Air Force Base. We are quite impressed and quite happy with Luke Air Force Base's activities thus far. We appreciate Brigadier General Cruder's timely communication to affected community members and their supply of bottled water to those in the community who are affected. Having said that, we do encourage the Air Force to work as expeditiously as possible to determine whether or not using the Bethany Hills West location will serve to halt contaminant migration, and if not, to look at other interim measures that they may be able to deploy. As of today, the draft work plan from Luke Air Force Base suggests that their remedial investigation will not be complete until the fall of 2024, or at least that's when their report will be submitted. And we encourage the Air Force to do what it's doing right now, acting in streamlined fashion and proactively to stop the plume as soon as possible. The reason why we want to do that is because poly and perfluoroalkyl substances have been studied and have shown that certain of these substances may increase the risk of cancer, affect the immune system, and impact children's development. Research generally suggests that human exposures to PFAS from consumer products is low when compared to exposures that impact the drinking water. And again, in the state of Arizona, all groundwater is a drinking water source. Research suggests that high levels of PFAS may increase cholesterol levels, decrease vaccine response in children, change liver enzymes, increase risk of high blood pressure and preeclampsia in pregnant women, decrease infant birth weights, and increase the risk of kidney and testicular cancer. While these compounds are currently not regulated by EPA, and although the state of Arizona does not have authority to regulate these compounds, we do appreciate the Air Force's activities to date and do encourage them to continue working expeditiously to make sure that not only impacted drinking water systems are including treatment, but that the groundwater is no longer allowed to move and impact additional public water systems down gradient. I will keep my remarks brief, but I certainly can address any questions that the Commission might have.
Thank you very much, Director Cabrera. We'll start with Commissioner Kennedy. Any questions?
Could you spell that fellow's name for me too? The guy who just spoke.
Commissioner Kennedy? Okay, and I don't hear anything, but I know we had technical difficulties before. So I'll move to Commissioner Olson, but somebody wave at me if Commissioner Kennedy is speaking, and I just can't hear her. Commissioner Olson, questions?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. No, I don't have any further questions, but thank you, Mr. Cabrera, for sharing that additional detail and being here to share your expertise with the Commission.
Thank you. Commissioner Tawad.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Director Cabrera. Thank you so much for your remarks. And thank you. I had spoken with two of your staff members this past week, and they were a wealth of information and doing some very great work here in the state of Arizona in regards to the PFAS. Just in regards to ADQ, can could you share a little bit about the 2018 EPA grant that was awarded and the testing that was done in Arizona, but more specifically in regards to the West Valley, in regards to areas around Luke?
Commissioner Tovar, I would like to refer that question to our Water Quality Division Director, Trevor Bejoli, who is much more knowledgeable as to the details of that study. Trevor, could you unmute yourself and address that question, please?
Of course, Ms. Al. Commissioner Tovar, the 2018 grant that we got from EPA was actually what they called a multi-purpose grant. It gave the agency some discretion on what we could use that grant for. And because we knew that fluorinated compounds use that, do a statewide assessment. You know, we call it a screening assessment. It wasn't an in-depth study of any particular location, but we took that money and did public water system testing for these perfluorinated compounds to understand, did we have any issues in our state that needed to be addressed? There were, the approach that we took was to identify the highest risk locations to make sure that we were getting data that would be the most at risk near landfills, Air Force bases, near firefighting areas. The results of that study that we did found that there were a few water systems, very few, that did have detects of the PFAS compounds, and even fewer, a handful, I believe, less than 16, that had results that were above the health advisory level from EPA. And what we did is we worked with the systems to off different wells to find a different source of water, or as in the case of facilities like Liberty Utilities, to install treatment.
Thank you, Trevor. I don't know if it's just me, I'm hearing.
There's a lot of feedback. You could mute. You're not.
Sounds like someone that is not muted. It sounds like they're at a grocery store. You can hear the little. I'll continue on with questions. So in regards to, can you just talk a little bit about the current EPA grant that you're currently doing? Can you talk a little bit about that, Trevor?
Yes, Commissioner Tovar. I turned off my video. Hopefully that helps with some of the quality of the sound. Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So we got a second grant from the EPA over the past year that we are also using to do additional study on PFAS. Not only are we doing additional locations, we're repeating some locations, and we're actually looking for a broader range of these PFAS compounds. We're in the middle of that testing, particular to the West Valley. They were on our list for the next few weeks. Based on the recent, concern that was raised over the week or so, we expect that we will try to speed that up to do that sooner rather than waiting 6 or 7 weeks.
Thank you, Trevor. And just to follow up with that as well, too, you in our call you had mentioned in regards to the role that the county plays. Can you describe that?
Yeah, so I want to make sure that Maricopa County gets credit for some of the work that they do. Maricopa County, we have delegated to them that the implementation of the Safe Drinking Water Act. So they do a lot of the permitting, inspections, compliance, those pieces of the Safe Drinking Water Act to ensure that the water system is, all water systems within their boundaries are serving healthy water and meeting the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Thank you, Trevor. In regards to the study that you're doing, do you share that information with the folks at the county?
Absolutely, both the sampling results, and we will ultimately put together a final report for that study that, of course, goes to EPA because they want to understand what they're getting for their grant, but we also make them public. In fact, our 2018 report is on our website regarding the testing that was done previously.
Thank you. In regards to the testing that you did, that was in 2018, and of course the testing that'll be completed, this year, is that something that you'll be able to share with the base, Luke Air Force Base?
Absolutely. Again, it's a public document. I don't have record of whether we shared those results in 2018 or not. We're happy to share that information with them today. But with regards to the final report or the data that we get from the current work that we're doing, we're absolutely willing to share and coordinate that with the base and with the water systems as well. All the water systems will get as quick of results as we do.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I hope that that would help in the transfer of information where, you know, the lap from 2016 EPA until, 2018 and now the gap from there until now. I think we'll hopefully try and bridge that so that we're, all trying to work for this, solution in case there are levels that are higher as well too. Can you explain a little bit, just for those that are on the call or in the public, in regards to a possible EPA enforceable standard and what you know about it currently?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. The EPA has been studying PFAS. They held, they held a summit for all of the state agencies to get together to understand what the different states were doing. Their drinking water program recently decided, under the Trump administration, decided that they were going to regulate perfluorinated compounds and set an enforceable standard under the Safe Drinking Water Act. That determination was reaffirmed by the new administration, the Biden administration. So we expect them to work over the next while to get an enforceable standard in place, at least for the PFAS and PFOA versions of perfluorinated compounds. So just a reminder, perfluorinated compounds, there's about 4,000 different varieties of perfluorinated compounds. Right now, we're just talking about a handful, the ones that we have health data on. So EPA will take time to make sure that the science is correct, and we'll go through a public process. So we anticipate that it'll be between 18 and 24 months before they have that enforceable standard finalized.
Thank you, Trevor. In regards to enforceable standards that are surrounding us, such as our neighbor states, do you know of any that currently have a law in place that has a limit on there?
So there have been several states. I don't have a list of them off the top of my head. I can give you a couple. States like Massachusetts or Canada, California have set different standards for PFAS, and they've done their own science work, and so their data may differ from what EPA ultimately proposes, and that's what we don't know yet. We don't know what the level will be yet, but those states have set their own enforceable standards, among others.
Thank you. And I know that we've talked a lot today about the 70 parts per trillion, but as you mentioned, and the other states have done their own research, have come up with, would have a 10 parts per trillion as part of their law?
From my recollection, I believe it is 10 parts per trillion, yes.
Okay. And then the other states that have them across the country, I think the highest that I found was 17 parts per trillion.
17 sounds familiar. Whether that's the highest of the different state standards, I couldn't speak to. So if you've done your research, that's probably accurate.
Okay. No, thank you. Just because there is a range, and then there's a big range from there to 70. So very interested in seeing how the EPA comes up with their enforceable standard as well too. Just in regards to other work that ADQ has done in regards to this, can you share a little bit about what is transpiring right now in Tucson?
Misael may be the better one to speak to about what's going on in Tucson. Misael, would you mind answering those questions?
No problem at all. Chairwoman Marquez Peterson and Commissioner Tovar. In Tucson, we have a plume of perfluorinated compounds, perfluorinated alkyl compounds, headed towards the central well field for the city of Tucson. The city of Tucson has already had to close 18 wells because of detections of PFAS compounds, and they communicated with us, let us know that it was urgent that we begin to address the issue. So what we did is we put a work plan together. We collaborated with Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, the city of Tucson, and others in the area to quickly develop a work plan that would install monitoring wells to define the extent of the plume. So as the plume moves, you're able to see its shape. And then once you know its shape and you know the characteristics of that plume, you're able to design remedial systems. And so we are currently designing a pilot remedial system that we will install begin installing this summer to fall, so that we can stop the progression of the plume as soon as possible. The state of Arizona in this particular case, because of the threats to the city of Tucson's central well field, which routinely serves 65,000 people and serves as the backup water supply for the entire city. We did not want to wait. We did not think it prudent to wait for Davis-Monthan to finish its investigation on base and near base. We set out to define the extent of that plume using our Water Quality Assurance Revolving Fund and are currently designing a system to stop the progression of that plume before it hits the central well field. Our encouragement to Luke Air Force Base is that while they are continuing to do a very thorough investigation on base, that they also prioritize defining of the plume before that plume impacts the hundreds of private wells that are down gradient and the 10 public water systems that are down gradient of Luke Air Force Base. So we will be installing a remedial system to stop the progression of the plume within a year of discovery. And right now, we don't have that kind of time frame from Luke Air Force Base. So again, while we congratulate them for their commitment to drinking water and making sure that people are served healthy drinking water, we would also ask them to accelerate their investigation of the subsurface contamination and its movement, and even offer our assistance. We have a lot of good local knowledge of the area and would be happy to collaborate with them more to accelerate that investigation.
Thank you, Director Cabrera. I share those same sentiments of where I hope that process comes along quicker, because I definitely share the same concerns in regards to our aquifer, this one being the Agua Fria, and having these type of contaminants been in, have identified since, the 1970s until the late 2016. I would say that is a concern as well too in regards to the plume of where it's been, where it's going, has it broken off, and then I would say another concern of mine as well too, this is, we are right now dealing with drinkable water, and I would say another aspect of concern for me is in regards to the non-potable, where wells are delivering those to different areas in the West Valley as well too, and for many, many years, possibly decades of transporting possibly those same contaminants to a property as well too, and just would like to know if that also is spreading in different areas in the West Valley because of that issue in regards to non-drinking water. Would you anticipate, if things moved along a lot quicker and information was shared, that you can do what was a similar project in Tucson here in the West Valley around Luke?
I believe so. The treatment technologies for these compounds have been developing quickly, and so the only problem we have to deal with is a hydrogeologic problem. Where are the contaminants and where do we install the wells in order to stop the progression of the plume? During this conversation, my team did some quick analysis of the Bethany Hills West complex, And those wells are located what's called side gradient. So while they will help some with the progression of the plume, they won't stop the natural progression of the plume as it flows down gradient. And so given that it's just a hydrogeologic problem, we can actually design investigation protocols using a known technology that EPA has had in place for years called Triad Methodology, which involves dynamic work planning, real-time data collection, and real-time decision-making. This is exactly what we've been doing in Tucson. We've already defined that plume to the 70 parts per trillion level. And later this year, we're going to install a few more wells so that we can define the complete extent of the plume, even if it's below 70 parts per trillion. And like I said, we're already designing a system to stop the progression of the plume. So the treatment technologies are known. They're not simple and they're not inexpensive, but they're known. And so it just becomes a hydrogeologic problem. And so accelerated investigations and interventions are possible. And again, we would encourage Luke Air Force Base to consider that as part of their activities. What they have today is a very thorough on-site and off-site investigation. Again, we commend them for that. When we would just ask that they prioritize stopping that plume. And so it's a different way of studying a problem. It's more like go to the emergency room, stop the bleeding as soon as you can, and then take care of the other underlying issues with more time.
Thank you, Director. I hope that comes to fruition as well too a lot quicker. And I appreciate your oversight over entities that the Commission doesn't regulate, as you mentioned, the 10, and having municipalities involved in those actions as well too. I am familiar with the treatment plant process where Luke Air Force Base is handing that, or a collaboration of moving that business to the city of Glendale. So I think that would be an integral part of their involvement as well too, considering that they would be, taking over that business as far as the wastewater treatment plan. And I know that the city also has some basins in the Arafria as well too, along with other possible municipalities that the plume may have already affected or could affect as well too. But I appreciate your participation today, and then as well as your staff as well too. They've provided a lot of information. Looking forward to continue working with you, hopefully on future calls as well too, and hopefully the next time we could hear a little bit more about the county and their aspects, just in a more detailed fashion in regards to maybe possible sightings, maybe any of that in regards to the area around the base as well too. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Connor, any questions?
Director Cabrera, thank you so very much for being with us today and participating in this. You've been most informative. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennedy, any questions?
No, Madam Chair, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Cabrera, I had a few questions here. Thank you for defining the EPA guidance or standards. Is ADQ able to have more stringent standards in our state, or must we stay with the EPA guidance?
Unfortunately, we have a statute that precludes us from regulating virtually anything more stringently than the EPA unless we have specific authorization by the legislature. That legislation passed in the 2009, 2010 timeframe. And so we are precluded in statute from issuing any rules that are more stringent than the EPA's unless we're specifically authorized by the legislature.
Okay, thank you. And in researching this, I've run across and had a few questions on the use of the Small Drinking Water Systems Fund and wondered if that was a potential last resort in the event the plume spreads to other utilities or we discover PFAS in other areas of the state where the federal government may not be involved. Are you familiar with that? Can you speak to it? Do you think it would allow the disbursement of funds in this regard, or is there any potential usage of that fund in the future?
So Chairwoman Marcus Peterson, thank you for that question. The Small Drinking Water Systems Fund is a fund that is housed at the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. It's actually not our fund, but the ACC, WIFA, and ADEQ collaborate to use those funds to help small drinking water systems when they don't have the wherewithal to improve their equipment in order to help them achieve standards. That fund is typically used for systems that are violating a specific standard, and we prioritize those systems that are having difficulty because of the number of connections or other reasons having difficulty funding them. So, for example, sometimes we have small drinking water systems that have 26 connections and 80 people. And so when you have a system that's that small, it's very difficult to generate enough revenue to buy relatively expensive pieces of equipment. And so typically when we use that fund is used for systems that are exceeding a current standard and systems that lack the ability to generate the revenue to fix their problem. So to answer your question more specifically, while it's possible that those funds could be brought to bear, and we're really thankful for the ACC's work to infuse that fund in the past with funding in working with the legislature. What's left in that fund right now that's unencumbered is about $100,000, and we have probably more than a couple of $1 million worth of needs. And so while theoretically it may be possible to use those funds, we would naturally prioritize those systems that have sometimes more acute contaminants, that already have a standard in place, and that lack the wherewithal to generate revenues to improve their systems. More funding for that fund would be outstanding. And so anybody on the call, if they were able to help WIFA get more funds from the legislature, I think that would be a worthwhile effort.
Yeah, thank you. And I know historically our agencies have worked well together. In this particular issue, what is the best way you think we can continue to work together going forward on this?
Well, I think maintaining high levels of communication as we've done, we're very appreciative of your invitation to participate in this meeting. I also believe that on occasion, the Commission has authorities that we lack. The department over the years has been given very narrow authorities in many cases, and we do the best we can within the authorities that we're given, but on occasion, as in the case of installing interim managers or other things like that, ACC sometimes does have authorities that we lack. And I think that constant communication pursuant to doing the most good for the most people at the earliest possible time is something that we would continue to appreciate. And I'm happy to report that our teams have been working really, really well. We worked very well with the Johnson Utilities case. It was the commission through former Commissioner Tobin that came up with the idea of developing the water emergency team. It was the commission that helped with the Small Drinking Water Systems Fund. And so we look forward to, additional collaboration. Certainly, when it comes to water quality issues, we are the primacy agency on that. But some brief exploration of some of the commission statutes indicate that you might have some authorities that are more general in nature and might be helpful in situations like this.
Okay, well, thank you again, Director Capodetta, for being here and for your team. Let's continue to communicate and get to the heart of this issue. So thank you. We're going to move on to our utilities, and I realize we have about 20-some minutes left. And with my fellow commissioner support, I'm going to move on to Valley Utilities with the hope we can get through Valley and perhaps Liberty. I don't know if we're going to get to everybody right now, and if not, we will certainly schedule time to continue with this. Unless there's any other suggestions folks have. I will move on to Valley Utilities Water Company and I guess Tierra Buena Water Company. And I think we have Brian Thomas on the line. Mr. Thomas, would you like to make a statement?
Hi, this is Brian Thomas, CFO for Valley Utilities and Tierra Buena Water Companies. I'd like to thank everyone for their participation today. We've learned some valuable information from all of the discussion, which has been great. As you are probably aware, we have submitted some questions that Commissioner Tovar had posted for a lot of the background and some of the information. And, I know we're short for time, so we're ready to field any questions you guys might have.
Okay, thank you. We'll see what questions we have then. Commissioner Kennedy, any questions for Valley?
No, Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson.
No, I was just going to say thank you for submitting that detailed response to those questions. I thought that was very helpful and informative and appreciate that information. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Tovar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So yeah, I do have a couple questions. I appreciate your response back on the letter to the 12 questions that I sent to you as well too, and just we'll take off on the 3 I had submitted to you in regards to a follow-up, which we haven't received yet, but we'll go ahead and get started. Just if you can just briefly explain your involvement with PFOAs since 2016 and what has transpired since then.
Yeah, so I just did want to point out in our response, I know the initial draft we sent to you just included your initial questions, but we did incorporate your additional questions on the final page of that response. So just wanted to point that out to you if you didn't see those already.
Thank you. Could you go ahead?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, just can you bring those in the public, those with us today on the call, what your involvement of your company has been with PFAS since 2016?
Yeah, so we first learned about the issue in 2016, right around the time that the EPA issued their health advisory. And we did do some initial baseline testing, and we did send a notice out to the customers shortly after that time. And that notice has been available on our website since that time, and we've also provided that notice to all new customers that have signed up for service since that time as well.
Thank
And
you.
then,
Can you get some more
and then,
space? And then I want a little, no mail. That's it. That's it.
Commissioner Kennedy, you need to probably mute your phone. Thank you.
So anyway, I just wanted to point out that when we did the initial baseline testing, we did have 2 wells initially that tested above the recommended level, and then we followed up with confirmation samples, and then one of the wells was above the level. And then we had ADEQ come out, and they contacted us in late 2017, and then came out and did sample some of our wells in early 2018 as well. And both of those results were no detect.
Thank you.
And then we did receive the Force Base reached out to us in early 2019 that they wanted to sample our wells and provide any necessary treatment that might be available based on those results. And we've been closely working with the Air Force Base ever since for almost 2 years now.
Thank you. In regards to the 2016 EPA, did you share those results with Luke Air Force Base?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. In regards to the notice that you gave in 2016, was that mailed to all your customers?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Did you also post it on your website?
Yes, that's true. We did post it on the website at that same time, and it's been posted ever since.
Okay. I have received one of your customers that have called and said that the link is no longer active. So if you can double check and see if that link is still active in regards to the 2016 notice, that would be awesome.
Yes, it is still active. We did have a glitch when we posted a copy of the letter from the Air Force Base. So there was a few days that we had an issue, but other than that, it's been up the whole time.
Okay, thank you. And since 2016 until the letter that Luke sent out, was there any other further communication with your customers in regards to the PFASs that were found in 2016?
No.
Okay. Were there any other testing that you did from 2016 to 2018 that were above the 70 parts per trillion?
We didn't do any testing after the 2016 other than what ADEQ did.
Okay. Do you know if what the wells that EPA had tested in 2016 and the wells that ADEQ tested in 2018, were those the same wells or were they different wells?
They were the same wells. Because we did test all of our wells in 2016.
Okay.
And 3 of the wells were no detect at that time.
Okay. So just for clarification, because I thought I heard you. So from you as a company, Valley Waters, have you tested for the PFASs since 2016 through 2018?
No, not us, only ADEQ did.
Okay. And is there a reason why you didn't follow up with any type of testing between those times?
Well, we were working with ADEQ and any of the agencies that wanted to do testing. Of course, since these are unregulated contaminants, there was no required testing during that time.
Thank you. So just in regards to best practices for the EPA, are you familiar with those?
No.
They're not?
No.
Okay. I believe it probably took me a couple minutes to find the fact sheet in regards to the EPA on what their best practices and recommended actions once an identified PFAS is. And part of that is future testing in regards to continuing to monitor that type of activity. in 2018, after ADQ tested your wells and there was no detect, have you since 2018 until Luke Air Force Base tested, did you test for these particles in any of your wells?
No.
Okay. And the reason why for not testing?
It's an unregulated contaminant, and so we are only testing for the constituents that are required by the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Thank you. You did have knowledge in 2016 that the limits exceeded or were at the 70 parts per trillion, and did identify that information to Luke Air Force Base. There's a neighboring water company next to you that took action immediately. Can you describe why you didn't take any action to bring a remedy to your customers?
Well, I mean, based on the conversations that we had earlier from Shimi, Matthew at the Air Force Base, it was our impression that, that costs for these types of things, may not be recoverable from the Air Force Base in the future. And due to the high cost of this treatment equipment, we didn't feel like we could have our ratepayers bear those costs for unregulated contaminants and for contaminants that were caused by the Air Force Base.
Thank you. During any of this time, do you actually live in your service area?
No, I don't.
So you do not drink the water that's there from 2016 until now?
I do work in the service area, and I've been drinking the water for 11 years.
Okay. And I'm asking this question very seriously. Do you care for your customers?
Oh, most definitely.
So why haven't you done testing afterwards, after knowing that your wells had the 70 parts per trillion and did not respond with any type of remediation action for your customers to solve this issue?
We were working with ADEQ in Maricopa County to do any testing that was required of us. Once we started working with the Air Force back in 2019, we knew that they were going to be doing additional testing and that they would be, handling all of the costs associated with treatment if the levels came in above the health advisory.
Thank you. But from 2016, you knew that a well had over 70 parts per trillion and didn't bring a resolution to it immediately. Is that correct? I'll go ahead and ask another question. Will you only provide safe water if someone else pays for the solution?
No.
How do you feel that your customers should be treated then?
I just want to say, we meet all of the safe drinking water standards. We're not chemists, we're not doctors. We follow the standards that are provided by the EPA, ADEQ, and Maricopa County. And if they deem these risks serious from the PFAS chemicals, we would indeed install treatment immediately.
And sir, I would need to ask you then, why are you under a current water bottle order? Do you consider that?
It's not an order. It was the Air Force Base that's being proactive, and they're offering to provide the water to our customers, which we gladly accept from them.
So if Luke Air Force Base didn't offer the water bottle order, you would at this point still be doing nothing?
Well, we've been not really doing nothing. We've been working with the regulatory agencies to determine if there is in fact an issue. We've been following all of the standards with the EPA since 2016.
So part of those standards and best practices from the EPA are testing that a company would do on their own wells in regards to this to get a full picture. In regards to the communication since 2016, have you sent out another notice to your customers since the Luke finding?
No.
And can you explain
We
why?
are working on a notice to our customers that we plan to have out within the next week.
Thank you. Can you explain why you didn't send a notice out when you knew about this?
Well, we knew the Air Force Base was sending the notice that contained all of the facts known at the time. It would have potentially been confusing if they got notices regarding the issue from two different sources. But we are planning on doing regular and routine notices to customers, and we will also be updating the status on our website as well.
And can you just
Go ahead.
Can you describe your communication plan? I know when we talked last week, there wasn't a plan yet in place, but can you walk us through in regards to the communication plan and what that looks like for your customers?
Yeah, we're probably going to do a monthly, at least, communication just to keep them updated on what's going on, most specifically with the treatment system and the status of how that's going. And then, of course, once the treatment system is installed and operational, and all of the testing meets below the health advisory levels, we will, of course, be communicating that the bottled water will no longer be needed.
And will that go out in a separate mailer, or would be that inclusive in your water bill?
No, it would be a separate mailer.
Okay. And would you have anything of
it would be on our website as well.
Okay. Would you have anything in regards to when you're sending it out, possibly being a certified mailing?
It's something we could consider.
Okay. In regards to calls that you've been receiving since this order has taken effect with the bottled water, are you currently tracking how many calls that you're receiving and from which customers?
Yes.
When did that tracking start?
I believe that started a week ago.
And since then, a week ago, how many customers have called?
I unfortunately don't have the statistics in front of me at the moment.
Thank you. Can you please file that within a response to the docket, please, when you do have that answer?
Sure.
In regards to communication with customers to your response center, can you describe a little bit about your customer relations team?
Well, we do have a customer service representative that fields the calls. And there, of course, customers, if it's not available, customers can always leave a voicemail. We also do have an emergency voicemail option that we have text on call 24/7 in case there's any problems in the system or things that we need to respond to. If the customers, need more information or the customer service representative isn't able to help them, she can always advance the calls to myself, and I can speak directly to customers as well, or email customers, whichever they prefer.
And how many people?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, it's Robin Mitchell. Excuse me, Commissioner Tovar. I just wanted to remind everyone that we only have 5 more minutes. This meeting was noticed from 2 to 4 o'clock, and because it was noticed to conclude at 4, we would need to conclude at 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin. In regards to your team, how many total team members are there at your office?
We have a total of 9 employees, and we have 2 employees primarily that will handle the phone calls.
Okay. And just for reference, I've been receiving phone calls, and I believe ADQ has been receiving phone calls in regards to your customers, along with Luke as well too. With it, the ones that are contacting my office are very frustrated in regards to the communication or that lack thereof that they're receiving from your communications relations team in regards to answers. And then also requests have been made for the sharing of any testing that you've done in regards to PFASs. But I think probably answering them with we didn't do testing would probably suffice, because they're still expecting those testing from those actual tests. I've had a couple saying that they were hung up on, they were yelled at in regards to them asking questions about this, and that they were quickly referred to Luke Air Force Base and to any type of further up communication as well too. Do you have knowledge of that type of customer service that is happening right now?
No, I've overheard some of the phone calls personally, and that's not how I would characterize them at all. We're trying to be as helpful as we can. I mean, there are some questions that we get that are more specific to the Air Force, and so we will provide them with their contact information to reach out to them for those questions.
Okay, I would hope, I am encouraging your customers to file their issues, complaints, suggestions, whatever it is, in the docket as well too, and hopefully we'll forward those to you as we get them as well too, to keep you posted on it. But seeing that there's 2 minutes left, I just got to share, Chairwoman, my frustration in regards to the lack of communication and the treatment that Valley Utilities has shown to their customers, knowing that there was 70 parts per trillion of these two contaminants in the water that has been known since 2016. And from that point have been unresponsive into regards to what would be a best practice in regards to this following EPA standards. I know there isn't a type of enforceable policy in place with the EPA, but if you're in the business to deliver safe and reliable water, I would say at a bare minimum, you would do follow-up testing to know and inform your constituents. Only informing your constituents one time since 2016 is truly unacceptable. I would hope that this communication plan in moving forward has constant communication with your customers, the effects of what potential harmful contamination over a long period of time can happen. This is a very serious issue, and your customers need this information. They need constant communication with you, and I would hope that you would change your policy in regards to not testing for this and expecting others to bring the solution. I know that the problem you did not cause. We know where the problem started. We know where the resolution has started as well too within Luke Air Force Base. But to say at this point that you can't be responsive to your customers, in my eyes, is unacceptable. And I believe that your customers deserve better than this. I'm hoping in future communication and in future webinars that we are able to come together with proper notice so that we can have more of a discussion on how we move forward with this within your company. And I believe by then we would probably be hearing a little bit more from your customers as well too. My role here is in making sure that the customers receive safe and reliable water from their water company. And at this point, what I found out has been truly a disappointment. And I will continue to advocate for that for the customers at Valley as well too. Seeing that our time is up, Madam Chair, I will hand it back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Tovar. Because we are out of time, what I'd like to ask is that Commissioner O'Connor and myself, we submit questions into the docket for Valley in particular. And then for those utilities, I apologize we could not get to you with our short timeline here. Liberty, EPCOR, Adaman, if you could please provide us an update in the docket, that would be appreciated. I also wanted to let each of our commissioners know that this item has been put on our next regular open meeting in March related to this issue, so we will have further dialogue then and hear more about the investigation. And thank you again to everybody for participating today. Thank you to Luke Air Force Base, Director Cabrera and your team. and all of the commissioners for joining us for this very important issue. Have a great evening. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tempe Mayor Corey Woods. My name's Hi, I'm Tempe Mayor Corey Woods. My name's
She has been a nurse for over 30 years, serving patients in the Phoenix area, where she has been an award-winning chief nursing officer for over 15 years. Susan received her master's degree in healthcare management from the University of Phoenix in Phoenix, Arizona. She completed her bachelor's degree in nursing from the College of St. Mary in Omaha, Nebraska. So that's a little bit of information about ourselves. We're going to go ahead and get into the presentation. and hopefully we'll be able to answer some questions here for you today. Here's a little bit about how today's session will work. I'll start us off with some facts and data about the state of COVID-19 in Tempe and around your area. Then we will go over some information about how the vaccine works, where and how you can get it, and more. We've already received some questions from some of the residents, so we will answer a few of them during the presentation. If you have additional questions, please post them into our Facebook feed for this event at facebook.com/City of Tempe. Both the C and the T are capitalized. So again, that's facebook.com/City of Tempe. If we have time, we will take a couple of those questions at the end of the presentation. Please be certain not to divulge any personal medical information or account numbers in the Facebook feed, and this is for your safety. At the end of today's presentation, we will have a list of websites you can go to for help and information. Again, that will be posted. We will also post that list onto our Facebook. I cannot. Okay. Welcome to our PowerPoint. This is live, so we're just going to roll with it. At the end of today's presentation, we will have a list of websites you can go to for help and information, and we will also post that list onto our Facebook event page, so don't worry if you can't write them all down. We will have that information for you. If you speak Spanish or a language other than English, this program will be posted tomorrow to youtube.com/Tempe11 video, and you can choose subtitles in a variety of languages. If you submitted a question in advance or if you post one in today's feed that we don't get to, we will be creating a document with answers to many of those questions. We will post it to Facebook as well as tempe.gov/vaccines next week. So we will get all of that information together, and we'll make sure that we answer your questions if we can't get to them today. I'd like to share with you some good news today as we move forward and let you know about the rate of COVID. So this is from our Arizona Department of Health Services, and this is for Maricopa County specifically. And what we're seeing are the 3 benchmarks that have been utilized for the business community and the gating criteria. And what you're seeing is a great decline. So we're seeing a decline in the COVID-like illness in the hospitals. We're seeing a decline in the % positive, and we're seeing a decline in the cases per 100,000. So this is very promising news. This means that all of you are doing a great job wearing your masks, physically distancing, washing your hands, and using all the precautions that have been advised for all of us. So we're very excited about this news. We want to keep this trend going. Because this is going down, this doesn't mean you can let up. We need to continue this type of behavior. So thank you so much in your help in doing so. Also, for additional information, what you're seeing right now is the CDC information, and this is for the 7-day rolling average for cases and new cases per day. And what you'll see is that red line is what is the epi curve, and the blue lines are the actual numbers each day that have been reported through Arizona Department of Health Services. Again, very promising to see that curve going back down. We saw a huge spike in December and January, but now we're seeing that go right back down, which is exactly what we want to see. So please keep up that good behavior. And then going to Tempe specific, this is a part of our City of Tempe COVID gating dashboard that has been created to give updates on the various benchmarks, hospital status and ventilator status. And then we have zip code data specifically on there for the 85281, 85282, 85283, and 85284 zip codes. And again, as you can see, all of this has been going down in the proper way. What we do report is the daily change, and then we also do the 7-day average as part of this dashboard. So that's some good news for all of us. We want to continue to reinforce the good behaviors, wearing the mask, physically distancing as we proceed forward, and that's as vaccines become available. We need you to continue that good behavior. So thank you so much for what you're doing. We're excited. We want to keep this trend going as we proceed forward. So what we will do next is move into our questions that we have so that we can start to give information about the vaccines. So if we can proceed forward, thank you. Okay, so what we will do is I will be asking our panelists questions. They will give answers, and then if there's any other follow-up information between the panel members, then we will provide that additional information. But these are common questions that we've seen or that we've experienced. So first question is going to actually be for both panelists, but I will start with Susan. And what I'd like to know is, what are the conditions like for healthcare workers at Tempe St. Luke's Hospital?
Sure. Thank you for asking, Andrea. As you have seen previously, we are seeing the decline, and we're very excited about that and very happy about that. Tempe St. Luke's in December and January, it was very difficult. We ended up opening 2 additional ICUs. So at one point, we were running 180% occupancy in our ICUs. So we did definitely see a significant amount of ventilated patients in needing the ICU services. For the inpatient units, we also doubled our capacity there, where we had 1 unit specific for the COVID patients. I think one of the most difficult things for both the community and the staff were the visitor restrictions. So we learned as we went what we could do to really involve families through FaceTime, through Duo, through multiple video applications, and it really took other practices like nurse leader rounding, et cetera, to connect with the patients and make sure that they were getting what they need. Because there's nothing more scary than being in the hospital and not having anybody to support you with that. We also needed to bring in additional resources for staffing, so we did bring in resources outside of Arizona. Now at this time, we are back to normal occupancies, so we have been able to release those travelers back.
Excellent. Thank you so much for letting us know where we are with the healthcare workers. And then I'm actually going to turn it over to Chief Duty and get a take for how has it been for our emergency responders out in the field?
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. So the first responders in the field, the last year plus has been pretty tough. I'd say that a lot of them are very tired. The conditions there, you can imagine, we saw on the slides a couple of slides ago that there was what you call the epi curve, right? And the number of patients that have COVID that we've run on exactly matches that. It's a smaller scale, obviously, because we're just concerned about patients in Tempe that we're seeing. But that really takes a toll on our first responders. They're concerned about contracting it from patients that they run on. They're also concerned about not spreading it in the station. So when they live in the fire station a third of their lives, they have to be very careful about not making sure that they adhere to those public health measures that we talk about all the time. So they're wearing masks anytime they're around anybody else in the station. They're washing their hands many times a day. They're trying to socially distance as best they can. It's difficult when you can imagine living in a house with somebody and trying to do that. So that's what they've been focused on for the last year. I also know that several of our staff, including my family, have been affected by COVID-19 specifically. When one of our members gets COVID-19, obviously they can't come to work for a long period of time, and those positions have to be filled by somebody, so that causes a lot of mandatory overtime, which puts a lot more stress on not only the person working, but their family as well. So that's how the year's been for us.
Excellent. So a question that I know that I hear a lot coming around the Valley and from various conversations are, what are some things that we can do to help? So I'm going to start with Chief Duty and just advise what are some things that community members or that any of us can do to help in this situation?
Yeah, thanks. So what I would recommend is, just like we've been talking about already, is make sure that we stay to those tried and true public health measures that we know work at this point. So make sure you wear your mask everywhere you go. Make sure that you socially distance. You stay at least 6 feet away from people. You're washing your hands regularly. You're trying not to touch your face with your hands and those kinds of things. Those are really going to be very helpful to help us get back to normal quicker. Also, what it does is if you're not able to get vaccinated yet, it lessens the likelihood that you're going to get sick, which also lessens the likelihood that you're going to end up in the hospital, or that you're going to have to call 911 and we'll have to come see you. So that's what I would say you could do to help.
Okay, and then Susan, what are some things from your perspective that folks in the community can do to assist or help during this pandemic?
Absolutely. As we open up to visitors at the hospital to go and visit patients that are non-COVID, it's important that we continue to use those precautions and to keep everybody safe around us. You will see all the healthcare workers are in surgical masks. The visitors can wear cloth masks, but social distancing, and we'll be limiting how many people can visit patients at the same time. That in itself really helps to reduce the spread of COVID. Thank yous. The healthcare workers love to see thank yous. The sidewalk chalk is a great idea to thank the hospital and the healthcare workers. We've received letters from the community, so I just want to tell you how grateful the staff are for their letters, and it really just puts a skip in our step when we get those letters, and we have a lot of gratitude for that.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly important, especially as we are seeing news articles or media reporting on fatigue of healthcare workers and nurses and the burnout rate. So
yes,
making sure that we're thanking our healthcare workers and those out there, first responders, is incredibly important. But also I think just supporting each other as we move through this pandemic and trying to stay as positive as possible is going to help us all get through this. So next question, which I know a lot of people have a question about, is how does the vaccine actually work? And I'm going to go to Susan first on this one to explain how the vaccine works.
Sure. Per the CDC, there's a very easy summary on that, and that is the two Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines are mRNA vaccines. And with that, the mRNA then takes a protein, and that protein builds a defense in our bodies. So if the virus does come into our bodies, then we have the defense to be able to fight that off.
Okay, and then I'm going to move over to Daryl to get your perspective as well. How does this vaccine work, and what's some additional information that you can give the community and the public about the vaccine?
Yeah, thanks. These vaccines they're really, I think they're kind of a modern, miracle of science and medicine at this point. There's no point in history which we've been able to identify a novel virus or any kind of disease and develop a vaccine for it in less than a year, really. Be able to develop the technology, be able to test it, and then be able to roll it out and start vaccinating people with it. That's really been amazing. Just like Susan said, that's the mRNA vaccines, and then I know that Johnson & Johnson has been approved on Saturday. That's a slightly different one, and I think we'll get into that a little bit later. But we're getting more and more vaccines approved, and that's a really great thing. And they're just slightly different in how they work. So, Moderna and Pfizer, they have different proteins that they target, but they are, they still target those proteins, and they make, they have your body make those things, and it's pretty amazing. It's really great.
Excellent, thank you. So as people are getting this vaccine, we hear a lot about the side effects and possible side effects that people are having with this. So Susan, can you tell me some of the most common side effects that we're seeing when people are getting vaccinated?
Sure, thank you. Per the CDC data, there's been 22 million people that have received either the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine up to this point. The side effects have not been serious. The most common side effects have been headaches, fatigue, dizziness. There have been some fever and chills that have been reported. We're very fortunate in that the severe allergic reactions have been very, very rare. In fact, only 4.5 cases per 1 million doses administered have had a severe reaction.
That's very promising. And then Chief Duty, any additional information with side effects or common side effects that you're seeing or that you've heard about?
Yeah, I think that's a great point is about the severe allergic reactions. They're extremely rare in these vaccines, which is amazing. Again, a testament to the technology that's been able to be developed. But I also think that it's important to remember that the vaccines also are preventing severe cases of COVID-19. So once you're vaccinated, the chances of you having a severe case of COVID-19 or having to be admitted to the hospital drops dramatically. I mean, it's very, very rare. So I think those are important things to remember when we're talking about vaccines, and something to keep in mind from the beginning. At this point forward, everything we talk about, just keep that in mind too.
And I think something interesting or something for the community to be aware of as well is all three of us have received the vaccine, both doses. I know for myself personally, I had a very mild grade fever, low grade fever, about 24 hours after it and just felt fatigued. I'm not sure for either Chief Duty or Susan if you have anything additional when it came to side effects, but I know mine were very mild or, just felt similar to flu-like symptoms for about a 24-hour period.
Yeah, I had some fatigue and some body aches, but it was for a very short period of time. And honestly, I would much rather have what I did than COVID for sure.
I agree with that 100%. I was tired, but other than that, was very fortunate.
And I know from earlier discussions, both Chief Duty and myself had the Pfizer vaccine and you had the Moderna vaccine. So we have experienced both vaccines as part of this panel. We are going to move forward onto one of the questions from the community, and this will be for Chief Duty. And this is from Beth Temple Holmes. Thank you, Beth, for writing in and presenting this question. How do we know for sure side effects from the vaccine are not actual COVID? And can the vaccine cause COVID? If it is not a live virus, why would the immune system react so strongly? So Chief Duty, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So the first question, how do we know for sure side effects from the vaccine are not actual COVID? That's a great question. Thank you for sending that in. What they recommend is that if you have those symptoms and if they don't resolve within 24 to 48 hours after you've been vaccinated, it's a good idea to get tested to make sure that it's not COVID. And you can call your physician also if you have other concerns about that too. It's always good to consult with your primary care provider. As far as can the vaccine cause COVID? So for both Moderna and Pfizer, there is not, the virus does not exist in those vaccines, just instructions for your body of how to make a specific part of the virus. It's not even the entire virus. So it isn't possible for the vaccine to cause COVID. And if it's not a live virus, which it's only a portion of the virus, why would the immune system react so strongly? Again, I go back to that's the beauty of the technology is it has instructions for you to be able to make just one little portion in your body of the virus. And the reason your body is reacting so strongly is because it's identifying that protein and it's saying, okay, this does not belong here. And it's readily identifiable by your immune system. And so your immune system really kicks in